This game doesn't want you here. Not in a "you're underpowered" way. Not in a "you'll die a lot" way. Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl hates you. The map lies to you, the weather tries to kill you, the people use you, and the thing at the center of it all, it's laughing. You're not the hero, you're not even a survivor. You're a body in waiting, a ghost that hasn't happened yet. And everything in the zone, every rusted door, every invisible anomaly, every snarling dog and desperate man, wants to make sure you stay that way. Welcome to Stalker. Released in 2007 by Ukrainian developer GSC Game World, Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl takes place in an alternate reality, where a second disaster occurred at the Chernobyl Nuclear Plant in 2006. This catastrophe created the Zone, a reality-bending area filled with physics-defying anomalies, mutated wildlife, and artifacts with supernatural properties. You play as the Marked One, an amnesiac stalker found on a death truck with only one clue to your identity. A PDA bearing the message, "Kill Strelok." But this seemingly straightforward revenge quest quickly spirals into something far more sinister, putting you deeper into the heart of the Zone and its secrets. In the Zone, bullets don't just kill you, they're currency. Every shot fired is wealth destroyed, every step forward costs something you can't get back. The artifacts you hunt will save your life and poison you simultaneously. And the bandits, the military forces, mutants, and rival stalkers, they all want you dead for different reasons. What sets Stalker apart isn't just its unforgiving survival gameplay or its bleak post-Soviet aesthetic. It's the ecosystem that exists whether you're there or not. Factions fight each other, mutants hunt anything that moves, anomalies appear and disappear, triggered by emissions that force you to seek shelter or die. This world doesn't bend to your will, it actively rejects your presence. This world doesn't just challenge you, it actively works against you, like an immune system fighting an infection. And the deeper you go, the more it resists. Stalker isn't just another FPS with survival elements tacked onto it. It's a masterclass in environmental storytelling, drawing inspiration from Andrei Tarkovsky's film Stalker and the novel Roadside Picnic by the Strugatsky brothers. Even its bugs and rough edges somehow enhance the feeling of alienation and hostility. In this video, we're going to relive the full descent. From the moment you wake up broken and nameless, to the moment you finally understand why this world is the way it is. And then we'll talk about what Stalker really is beneath the surface. Not just a shooter, not just a survival game, but a machine built to make you feel unwanted, yet strangely compelled to return. The rare moments of camaraderie around a campfire only make the isolation more crushing when you return to find everyone dead. This isn't just difficulty, it's hostility, woven into the very fabric of the experience. Let's begin. A storm rages over the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone. Lightning fractures the night sky as a military truck speeds down an abandoned road, its headlights cutting through sheets of rain. Inside that truck lies cargo more precious than supplies or weapons. Human bodies, dozens of them. Some dead for days, others still warm. And among them, a single survivor with Stalker tattooed on his arm, unconscious but breathing. A flash of blinding light. Thunder cracks the heavens. A bolt strikes the vehicle, sending it careening off the road into a ravine. Metal tears, glass shatters. Darkness consumes everything. Morning breaks over the zone, revealing the wreckage. A lone figure approaches cautiously, scanning for threats. He discovers you among the corpses, the only survivor. Not out of miracle or destiny, but simple, cruel chance. The scavenger drags your broken body through mud and radiation, not to save your life, but to collect whatever bounty Sidorovich might pay for fresh meat that's still breathing. In the cold, concrete bunker beneath the Cordon, you awaken to a new existence. The face looming over you belongs to Sidorovich, a man whose features tell the story of the zone itself. Weathered, harsh, and utterly without sentiment. His eyes assess you not as a person, but as inventory. Your introduction to your own identity is a PDA with a single message. Kill Strelok. No explanation, no context, just an assassination order for someone you don't even remember. And here's where Stalker stops being poetic about your awful situation and starts being brutally honest. You're screwed. Sidorovich isn't helping you because he's a good Samaritan with a heart of gold. This man wouldn't give you directions to the toilet if your stomach was making sounds like a nuclear meltdown. No, you're just another asset to exploit. A walking gun with amnesia, perfect for his needs. He needs some guy called Nimble rescued from bandit. Well, not Nimble exactly, just the flash drive he's carrying. If Nimble happens to survive the rescue mission, Sidorovich would consider that an inefficient use of a body bag. But hey, he's giving you a job, which is the closest thing to kindness you'll find in this radioactive hellhole. You climb the ladder out of his bunker and step into the Cordon, a collection of dilapidated buildings where rookie stalkers in leather jackets huddle around campfires, like they're auditioning for a post-apocalyptic boy band. One of them is playing the same 4 depressing chords on a guitar. You'll be hearing those notes in your nightmares for years to come, assuming you live longer than the next 20 minutes. Your first weapon is a PMM pistol, generously donated by some stalker. With 48 rounds of sad little bullets, it's less gun and more mild suggestion. Still, it's better than charging into mutant-infested hell with a rock and a dream. Just outside the village, you meet Tolik, bleeding out beside a corpse, begging for a medkit. Give him yours and maybe gain a friend. Keep it and gain a corpse to loot later. The zone teaches you quick, generosity is often fatal. Heading to the car park with Wolf Scouts, you get a taste of what passes for scenery here. Radiation anomalies and the unsettling realization that your Geiger counter is suddenly your most valuable possession. You start tossing bolts ahead like you're checking toilet seats for warmth. The bandits holding Nimble are your first human enemies, which is fitting. Humans are always the worst monsters. The shootout is quick and ugly. Scouts die, bodies drop, and you learn death here is mostly just an opportunity to redistribute gear, mostly to yourself. You find Nimble alive, barely, and he hands over the flash drive. No thanks, just business mainly. He's already trying to sell you info on an artifact stash in the zone. Gratitude is just another form of currency. Back at the bunker, Sidorovich swipes the drive and tosses you a few rubles, then explains. Strelok, the guy tied to your mystery, reached the zone's center and lived. He then assigns you your next mission. Steal military documents from the Agriprom Institute. These documents might reveal how to bypass the Brain Scorcher, the psychic meat grinder blocking access to Pripyat. Worth a fortune if you survive. He wants these documents delivered to his contact at the 100 Rads bar, the barkeep. Oh, and if you run into a stalker named Fox, he might know something about Strelok, but that's a side quest. The papers matter more. But congratulations, you survived your first mission. The zone welcomed you with bullets, radiation, and suspicion. This is you on a good day. It only gets worse. As we depart to head to the Institute, our first real roadblock is a military checkpoint under a rail bridge. Ukrainian soldiers with AKs want 500 rubles just for walking past. You've got 3 options: pay the bribe, sneak past, or murder everyone and loot their gear. However, this option is quite difficult considering we have a shitty pistol and a sawn-off shotgun and they have military gear. But fortunately for me, option 3 worked beautifully, mostly thanks to blind luck and a sawned-off shotgun I stole from a dead bandit. One point-blank shot later, and suddenly I was armed with an AKS-74U and a new lease on violence. 4 soldiers down and I was rocking military gear, ammo, and a personal moral crisis. Under the bridge, a stash box rewards your boldness with more supplies, because the zone loves sociopaths with initiative. Most stalkers that aren't me pay the fee the first time and come back around later to clean house. I call that delayed fiscal responsibility, but not my style. With the checkpoint cleared, Sidorovich radios in. Fox is nearby. Of course he is. Why wouldn't an informant be waiting in the middle of a radioactive war zone? Despite your main mission being the Agriprom documents, finding Fox along the way couldn't hurt. You follow your PDA's directions to a couple of dilapidated houses, their concrete walls crumbling and painted with decades of neglect. Inside the first one, you find Fox sprawled on the floor, bleeding from a wound that looks suspiciously non-anomaly related. He's pale, muttering, barely conscious. Once again, the zone presents a moral conundrum disguised as a man. Give Fox your medkit, or let him bleed out and loot his corpse, but you won't get his information. Assuming you're not completely heartless, or just fresh out of medkits, you patch him up. Fox, now slightly less likely to die in the next 5 minutes, tells you he doesn't actually know Strelok personally. Surprise, he's just communicated with him once, and by communicated, he means they exchanged gunfire before realizing they weren't enemies. Such is the nuanced art of conversation in the zone. However, Fox does mention that his brother, who's hanging out at the garbage hangar, might know more about your mystery man. Just as Fox finishes his stunning revelation that he knows absolutely nothing useful, a pack of blind dogs decide you all look delicious. Their leathery, radiation-burned skin stretches over prominent ribs as they charge towards you, slavering jaws open wide. Nothing brings people together quite like mutated wildlife trying to eat you. Thankfully, with Fox now on his feet, you have backup for this fight. After dispatching the dogs, whose bodies look somehow more pitiful in death than they did in life, Fox thanks you with 1,500 rubles and information about a stash near what he calls the death truck. Is it the same death truck you arrived in? The zone loves its little coincidences. The truck contains a few supplies, but more importantly, it serves as a grim reminder of your own arrival. Another anonymous body, destined for disposal. Except you lived. For now. Arriving in the garbage feels like crashing a family reunion where everyone brought guns. It's a scrapyard wasteland, cranes like rusted skeletons, metal pipes humming with anomalies, and enough radiation to cook you from the inside. You're barely in when a stalker named Yurik gets jumped by 3 neutral bandits, neutral like a grenade with the pin halfway out. Saving him isn't required, but having someone who owes you can't hurt. East of there, you find Bess, permanently scowling and preparing for a bandit counterattack. They disagreed earlier, read Bloodbath, and now he needs backup holding the scrapyard. Loot what you can before the shooting starts. There's a stash in a nearby building and a broken tower with ammo crates above. Shoot them down for a glorious downpour of bullets. You'll fucking need them. Right on cue, a stalker runs up to Bess yelling that bandits are inbound. 8 of them, plus a leader who probably collects spleens. Bess and his crew help, but since Bess enjoys standing in the open like a human target, help is a generous term. The bandits come in from the west, tossing a grenade or two from behind a rusted trailer usually kicks things off. They weave through the wrecks, yelling, "Shiggy-bariggy!" which basically means I'm about to do something very stupid. Once they're down, Bess rewards you with 2,000 rubles and the charming insight that the garbage is awful and you're probably going to die here. He's not wrong. Bonus, if Bess dies in a later fight, loot his AKM-74 2U special. It's silenced and stylish, because in the zone, your friends are just well-dressed loot drops. With Bess's mission complete, it's time to find Fox's brother and learn something, anything about Strelok. As you approach the central hangar, a massive corrugated metal structure that looks like it might collapse if you sneeze too hard while near it, you receive a transmission. Suryi and his crew are under attack by bandits. Because of course they are. Nobody in the zone can go 15 minutes without being attacked by something. It's like the entire place is one giant radioactive mosh pit. The transmission cuts off amid gunfire and screaming. As you get closer to the hangar, the sounds of battle grow louder. Assault rifles, shotguns, and the occasional grenade, creating a symphony of destruction. Inside the cavernous building, you find Suryi in his stalkers behind makeshift barricades, trading shots with bandits who have them pinned down. Help them clear out the threat, which involves navigating the hangar's exposed catwalks and platforms while avoiding getting shot from multiple angles. And Siri will call you over for a chat. Your reward? 2,500 rubles and information that a friend of his called Mole supposedly found a stash belonging to Strelok at the Agraprom Research Institute. Finally, a solid lead. Or at least a lead that doesn't immediately result in dogs trying to eat you or bandits trying to blow your face off. Seri mentions that Mole can be found at the Institute, a place whose name alone should tell you it's filled with things that want to kill you. But that's a problem for future you. For now, be sure to check the nearby train cars for supplies. The first one has some crates and a metal box inside with ammunition and medical supplies. In the second train car closer to the Western Jacket, you can find more ammunition and a bandit jacket. An armor upgrade that might keep you alive for an extra 3 seconds in your next firefight. The deeper you push into the zone, the more it seems to push back. Every step forward is paid for in blood, bullets, and radiation poisoning. Every ally is temporary, every victory is incomplete, and somewhere ahead, Agraprom awaits with new horrors to discover. An abandoned Soviet research facility where the walls themselves seem to whisper madness. But before you leave the relative safety of the garbage, a phrase that should tell you everything about the zone. Take a moment to appreciate that you're still breathing. Many stalkers never make it this far. To reach Agraprom, I had to cross a narrow gauntlet of anomalies packed tighter than mushrooms after rain. My detector screamed, and I tossed bolts like breadcrumbs to avoid joining the skeletons of those less lucky than me. The scenery shifted. Garbage's junk fields gave way to swampy lowlands and Soviet concrete decay. Ahead loomed the Agraprom Institute, complete with mutants, anomalies, and soldiers eager to ventilate anyone without a uniform. Just as I arrived, my PDA lit up. A stalker named Mole was under attack. Perfect, my target was somewhere in this war zone, and now I get to fight a battle just to get to him. Welcome to Agraprom. Good luck staying above ground. Ignoring the glowing artifacts scattered nearby, aka bait for snipers, I made my way to where Mole was being pinned down by the military. Soldiers and stalkers were tearing each other apart, but things turned once I joined the party. Turns out, helmets don't help when you're shot in the back of the head. After wiping out the first wave, Mole radioed that he was trapped in the central yard. I charged in and mowed down the rest. 15 reloads of trial and error, transforming me into a finely tuned murder machine. Bonus, the soldiers carried AKM-74-2s, which meant a well-earned upgrade for my pea shooter. With the yard cleared, Mole appeared long enough to thank me and drop some bad news. Special forces were inbound. These weren't your average grunt. They had obicons and bad attitudes. Mole led me to a rusty hatch by the western wall, explaining that Strelok once hid out below. Perfect. Underground, where nothing good ever happens. I descended into the tunnels beneath Agraprom, where the air smelled like damp concrete, sewage, and existential regret. My flashlight mostly created more reasons to panic. I ran into a group of bandits squatting down here like it was a timeshare. 8 guys, all startled. I introduced them to the joys of bullets and cleared the place out. Sidorovich would be thrilled, assuming he even noticed. Deeper in, I passed through spiral stairs and tunnels littered with anomalies, organ blender zones glowing angry red. Naturally, I stepped carefully. Then came the growl. Not just any growl, a bloodsucker. Imagine a hairless 8-foot vampire squid that can turn invisible. That's a bloodsucker. I tried stealth, found an artifact, and then it charged. I emptied half a mag into it, and it died screaming. Therapy unlocked. Military troops showed up next, because why not? I introduced them to my bullets, and cleared the survivors room by room. Then my PDA pinged. Strelok's stash was nearby. I climbed into a hidden room filled with maps, conspiracy corkboard energy, and a flash drive detailing Strelok's past. Turns out Fang is dead, Ghost knows something, and Strelok went to the zone center alone. Fantastic. Also, loot heaven. Artifacts, armor, a custom AKM that spat rounds like a blender, and enough ammo to start a regime change. Heading out, I faced more soldiers, and then, surprise, more anomalies. But I managed to make my way through. I climbed out of the sewers as sunlight finally hit my face. Alright, yeah, the documents that we're here for. Guess we're not done quite yet. With the underground nightmare done, it was time to storm the Agroprom building. The soldiers were on high alert, probably because I'd already wiped out half their barracks. Subtlety? Never heard of her. I sniped a guard from afar with this fast-firing AKM and then made my assault, letting the fireworks begin. The soldiers attacked in waves, each one seemingly unaware the last had died trying the exact same thing. I used grenades somewhat. They used tactics. We all know how that ends. The documents were on the top floor, guarded like they were painted top secret in neon on the door. After clearing the room, I finally had the intel on bypassing the brain scorcher. Hopefully worth the body gang. On the way out, I casually added 3 more soldiers to the pile, then it was off to the 100 Rads bar, deep in Judy territory. Think mall cops with heavy weapons and a messiah complex. The barkeep himself was underwhelming in every way except connections. I handed over the documents. He handed me a new mystery and that familiar zone stare that says, "Congrats, your real problems are just beginning." Forward was the only way now. Backward was just ghosts. After handing over the documents, the barkeep rewards me with more work. He gives me a stalker suit and tells me I need to break into Lab X18 because apparently one batch of deadly intel isn't quite enough. The catch? I need 2 keys. He's got one of them, but the other is in the hands of a bandit boss named Borov, who's basically walking around with future loot tattooed on his forehead. The barkeep also tries to sell me an IL-86 assault rifle. Great gun, horrible ammo. It uses 5.56 rounds, which are rarer in the zone than a clean pair of socks. If you buy it, you'd better be ready to loot corpses like it's Black Friday in hell. The Dark Valley, which is our next area, is Soviet decay on hard mode. Crumbling factories, endless gloom, and a faint whiff of hopelessness. I ran into Bullet from Judy, standing over a wounded bandit. He wanted help ambushing a group to free his buddy, and in exchange, a PSO-1 scope that I can mount on my AKM. A scope, in the zone. That's like being handed a gold-plated miracle. I agreed. The ambush was quick and clean. Dead bandits, 1 rescued Judy member, and a shiny scope for my troubles. The rescued guy, Vasco, mentioned another prisoner inside the bandit HQ, which just so happened to be where I needed to go for Borov's key. I skipped the front gate and crawled through a drainage pipe. Not glamorous, but better than getting ventilated by bandits with itchy trigger fingers. The pipe led me into the compound, and I immediately ducked into a trench to avoid being spotted. This part of the zone is basically Bandit Central. There are more leather jackets and sawned-off shotguns per square meter than a 1980s biker convention. The HQ itself was a maze of walkways, stairs, and multiple floors that seemed designed by an architect who was paid by the detour. I had to fight through waves of bandits, my game crashing multiple times because apparently even the software was traumatized by the sheer number of bodies I was creating. Between the crashes and the lack of autosaves, this section was the first real welcome to Stalker moment where the game seemed actively malicious towards me. Eventually, I fought my way to Borov's office on the first floor. The bandit boss himself wasn't much of a challenge, just another thug with marginally better gear. After making his skull look like a trypophobic nightmare, I searched his body and found the second key to X18, along with a treasure trove of supplies. His office was loaded with goodies. Medkits, bandages, food, grenades, and ammunition. I stuffed my pockets like a kid at a candy store, where all the candy is designed to keep you alive in a radioactive hellscape. Before leaving, I found the imprisoned Judy member in the cellar and freed him. There was also a storage room full of supplies. Mostly vodka, because of course the one thing bandits would stockpile is alcohol. Nothing eases the pain of living in a mutant-infested wasteland quite like liver damage. It's just really the quintessential Eastern European experience. With my pockets full of loot and my mission complete, I headed to the entrance of Lab X18, located in the cellar of the main factory building in the western part of the Dark Valley. More bandits guarded the approach, but they were just speed bumps at this point. Annoying obstacles between me and my objective. I unlocked the rusty door with both keys and descended into Lab X18. A crumbling Soviet dungeon caked in dust, decay, and what I really hoped wasn't blood. The elevators were dead, the stairwells creaked, and my PDA map layered all 3 floors on top of each other, like a funhouse for masochists. Then came the poltergeists, telekinetic nightmares that chucked debris at my head while remaining completely invisible. A flying paint can nearly knocked me out. Welcome to science hell, but other than, marginally chucking objects at me, they really weren't that annoying. My first goal, open a locked door on the middle floor. But before that, I scavenged and scored big. A Monolith suit and an AKM with a grenade launcher. A dead scientist Christmas gift. I passed on through burner anomalies and ran into 2 snorks. Mutated soldiers that leap at you like gas mask frogs on bath salts. After dealing with them, I found the first code, 1243, how fucking creative, on a scientist's body and unlocked the door to the lowest level. Down there, things got worse. More poltergeists, more flying furniture, and another locked door. The second code, 9524, was somewhere on the floor, but a pseudo-giant was guarding the way. Basically, a radioactive gorilla built like a tank. I unloaded everything I had into it until it stopped moving, grabbed the code off yet another corpse, and opened the final door. Inside were the documents I came for. As soon as I picked them up, the door slammed shut behind me and a new guest appeared. A pyrogeist. Like a poltergeist, but on fire, because clearly this hellhole wasn't quite done with me yet. I dealt with this fiery entity by peppering it with enough bullets to make the US fucking military budget blush, and as it dissolved into ash, an overwhelming fatigue washed over me. My vision blurred, consciousness slipping away as I collapsed to the cold concrete floor. In the darkness of unconsciousness, a strange vision unfolded before me. A lone stalker, Strelok I somehow knew, stood in the shadow of the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, his AKS-74U raised against a tide of rats surging towards him from all directions. There was something unnatural about this scene. The rats moved with purpose, like a single organism rather than individual creatures. As Strelok's ammunition dwindled, the swarm overwhelmed him. He turned towards me, his face obscured in shadow, and a disembodied voice whispered his name. Strelok. The vision felt significant, like a memory trying to surface. The rats seemed symbolic, perhaps representing the zone itself, consuming everything in its path. Or were they agents of some greater intelligence within the zone? And why did I feel such a connection to this man I was supposedly hunting? The line between hunter and hunted was blurring, and I had the unsettling feeling that I was missing something crucial about my own identity. I awoke with a start, my head pounding with questions that had no answers. Something about that vision felt too real to be a mere hallucination induced by lab chemicals or radiation. The connection to Strelok seemed personal, intimate even. But before I could contemplate further, my radio crackled with a warning. Military troops had moved into the area while I was unconscious. I retraced my steps for the facility, now encountering military personnel who had somehow decided that an abandoned laboratory filled with psychic entities was an appropriate location for guard duty. They died in confusion, victims of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I eventually emerged back into the dark valley with the documents secure. Sidorovich contacted me, suggesting a return to the Cordon to avoid the increased military presence. I disregarded the advice. The path back to the barkeep was manageable, and I had both artifacts to sell and documents to deliver. One step closer to the center of the zone, one more piece of the puzzle recovered. But with each mission completed, the questions only multiplied. What was happening to me? Why these visions? And what connection did I truly have to the elusive Strelok? The zone rarely offers answers, only more mysteries, more danger, and the constant feeling that the truth is just beyond your grasp. The barkeep didn't even let me exhale after retrieving the documents from X18 before sending me to find scientists studying the brain scorcher. A psi emitter that doesn't just make zombies, it makes armed zombies. Great. To reach them, I had to cross the wild territory. An urban ambush maze full of rust, snipers, and regret. Mercs were everywhere. I took out 4 snipers on rooftops and a 5th guy with a TRS-301. Off to a solid start. Deeper in, I picked up a distress call. Kruglov and his science team were pinned down behind an overturned truck like extras in a bad action flick. I cleared the mercs, and Kruglov, grateful but still clueless, asked me to escort him to Yantar. What followed was like babysitting a suicidal toddler with a PhD. He'd stop, warn me about enemies, then refuse to move until I cleared them. The final stretch was a tunnel full of burner anomalies. Guess who had to go first? I navigated the fire maze, grabbed some artifacts, cleared zombified stalkers, and got Kruglov through. He handed me a flash drive for the barkeep and said to meet Professor Sakharov about Lab X16. Just another lovely day in the zone. Yantar greeted me with the charm of a radioactive swamp, which is exactly what it was. A mobile laboratory stood in the center, surrounded by a protective wall and more zombified stalkers than a George Romero movie. The air hummed with an unsettling psychic presence, the brain scorcher's influence. Inside the mobile lab, I met Professor Sakharov. A man whose enthusiasm for scientific discovery was matched only by his complete disregard for personal safety. He rewarded me for saving Kruglov with an SSP-99 ecologist suit. When I asked about X-16, he explained that they were trying to develop protection against the psi emissions from the brain scorcher to allow us to get close enough to actually turn it off. But Sakharov needed more radiation readings to complete his work, which meant another escort mission with Kruglov, because the first one was so much fun. We ventured out of the lab safety, with Kruglov stopping at 3 measurements points. I cleared zombified stalkers from our path, knowing Kruglov would go down faster than cheap vodka at a stalker campfire if they got a clean shot. At the final measurement point, near an abandoned bus, Kruglov warned me about something right before we both passed out. I woke up inside the bus to find Kruglov wounded, needing a medkit. After patching him up, we returned to Sakharov, who handed me a functional psi helmet. Finally, protection against the brain scorcher's influence. My next mission was to enter Lab X-16 itself. Sakharov mentioned his associate Vasilev had tried to enter the lab with Ghost, the same Ghost mentioned in Strelok's group, but never returned. Vasilev's body was near the swamp, and I needed to check it out for information. I found Vasilev's body near a downed helicopter west of the mobile lab. Searching him revealed a recording that shed some light on what happened to Ghost. With that information, I headed to the facility surrounding X-16. The facility was surrounded by a wall, with zombies and snorks prowling everywhere. After clearing the area and looting some supplies, I entered the building and descended into Lab X-16. Unlike the maze like X-18, Lab X-16 had a more straightforward layout. Just a straight path to hell. The lab was infested, however, with zombified stalkers and snorks, making progress a bloody affair. I moved through rooms filled with shelves, boxes, and the occasional artifact until I reached a large circular chamber. That was it, the psi emitter causing all the trouble. According to Sakharov, I had a few minutes to shut it down by activating switches on different levels of the chamber. The timer started when I entered, and zombies began converging on my position, and if I didn't complete it fast enough, I would be joining them. Racing against time, I activated switches while fighting off these zombies and dodging anomalies. It was like a demented game show where the prize was not getting your brain turned to pudding. The chamber was a multi-level nightmare, with zombies converging from every direction and anomalies pulsing in the darkness. I collected artifacts as I went, droplets and fireballs mostly, their ethereal glow adding to the surreal atmosphere. Each switch I flipped caused the machinery to groan and shudder like some massive beast in pain. I finally reached the top level and flipped the last switch, shutting down the emitter. The machinery wound down with a series of mechanical moans, and an unnatural silence fell over the chamber. The constant psychic pressure that had been building in my skull suddenly released. The world tilted. Darkness swallowed me. I fell. And in that descent into unconsciousness, everything changed. The vision that engulfed me wasn't fragmented like before. It unfolded with crystalline clarity, like watching a movie of a life I couldn't remember living. The Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant loomed in the background, its massive cooling tower silhouetted against a bruised sky. A figure stood in the foreground, examining a weathered photograph of the facility. He turned, and the world stopped. It was my face, my eyes, my scars. This wasn't some vague resemblance or a trick of the light. The man I was looking at wasn't just similar to me, he was me. Strelok and I were one and the same person. My doppelganger, no, myself, spoke to an older stalker nearby. A weathered man with kind eyes and steady hands. The conversation echoed as if underwater, but I understood its essence. Strelok had fought his way to the reactor against impossible odds and now stood at the threshold of discovery. The scene dissolved, reforming into a dimly lit room. Strelok, I, lay wounded on a makeshift bed, with the older man tending to injuries. Doc, my mind supplied, though I had no memory of him. Despite his weakened state, Strelok insisted on returning north to Pripyat and the reactor. He had been so close to what? The answer hovered just beyond reach. The vision began to splinter, reality reasserting itself. I jolted awake. A silent scream caught in my throat, the revelation burning through my mind like wildfire. The fragmented pieces of memory, the strange familiarity with places I'd never been, the way certain stalkers would look at me with recognition before quickly moving away. It all collapsed into a single, undeniable truth. I wasn't hunting Strelok. I was Strelok. I had been hunting myself. The vertigo of this revelation was physical, a lurching sense of reality shifting beneath my feet. Who had done this to me? Who had wiped my memory and programmed me to seek my own destruction? What secrets had I discovered that warranted such an elaborate trap? The zone hadn't just taken my memories, it had weaponized me against myself, made me complicit in my own erasure. With this cosmic revelation still reverberating through my consciousness, I stumbled westward. my sense of self fracturing and reforming with each step. I entered another large room and encountered a controller, its grotesque bloated head pulsing with psychic energy. After just running past this abomination with mechanical efficiency, I discovered a body on the floor. A stalker in distinctive armor, his PDA still clutched in a death grip. Ghost. Not just another corpse, not just another name, my companion, my friend, from a life that I couldn't even remember living. Searching his corpse, I found his PDA with a recording explaining what happened. Ghost had been killed by the controller and mentioned someone called Doc who would know where to find Strelok. I also recovered the documents I needed, along with a unique armor called the Ghost Suit. Instead of backtracking to the entrance, I had to drop down a hole near Ghost's body, landing in tunnels beneath Yantar. These tunnels had everything. Zombies, snorks, and even a pseudo-giant. Just when I thought my day couldn't get better, I heard gunfire and explosions from military helicopters sent to deal with the zombie infestation. I navigated through the tunnels, eventually finding a ladder that led back to the surface in Yantar. Returning to Sakharov, I delivered the news about shutting down the Psi emitter. He offered me another mission to clear out snorks, but I was more interested in my next lead, returning to the barkeep to continue my adventure. With my pockets full of artifacts and my head full of questions, I left Yantar behind. The brain scorcher was disabled, yes, but the mystery of Strelok and my own identity was only deepening. The answers seemed to lie north, in the forbidden territories beyond the army warehouses. And that's exactly where I was headed next. After dealing with Ghost's corpse and the whole I'm actually Strelok identity crisis, I returned to the barkeep. He gave me a new job. Shut down the brain scorcher in the Red Forest so I could finally reach Pripyat in the center of the zone. First though, I had to pass through the army warehouses. Freedom territory. Unlike Judy's military discipline, freedom is all about chaos, weed, and probably cannibalism, judging by how one guy looked at me like a protein bar and asked if I was staying for dinner. That actually happened, by the way. It was quite disturbing. Right away, I stumbled on 3 freedom guys about to get ambushed by Judy. I let it play out. When the smoke cleared, a Judy soldier waved me over. Their commander, Skull, offered a job. Kill a freedom sniper in a tower. Easy shot, easy 4,000 rubles. Then he asked if I'd help assault the freedom base and kill their leader, Lukash. That's where I checked out. I've just discovered I was Strelok, a living paradox, and this faction turf war felt beneath me. I stuck around to watch, however. Skull and his squad charged the freedom base like idiots. 8 against 20? You can guess how that ended. On the bright side, their corpses had great gear. Thanks for the donation, Judy. Approaching the Red Forest, I got a distress call from Cap, leader of Freedom's barrier outpost. Monolith was coming, and they needed help. If you don't know Monolith, think religious death cult. Zone fanatics with guns and dead eyes, like Soviet-flavored ISIS without the online presence. I climbed a tower while freedom fighters huddled behind sandbags. Then the Monolith hit. Coordinated, relentless, and heavily armed with GP-37s. It felt less like a battle and more like trying to plug a dam with toothpicks. 15 Monolith corpses later, the survivors exhaled. Cap handed me 2,500 rubles. Basically minimum wage for surviving a bloodbath. I looted everything I could, including several GP-37s. The zone doesn't do gratitude, but it always leaves souvenirs. The Red Forest is what happens when you take a normal forest, add a nuclear disaster, top it with psychic experiments, and then sprinkle some murderous cultists on top. The trees stand dead and rust-colored, killed by radiation, but too stubborn to fall over. The air itself feels wrong, like it's trying to crawl inside your skull and redecorate. I had 2 options, follow the road or cut through the forest. The road meant more Monolith troops, but also better loot. The forest was quicker, but offered less reward. Being the greedy bastard I am, I chose the road. If I was going to face certain death, I at least wanted to be well equipped for it. Not far from the entrance, I spotted a Monolith control point with 4 soldiers patrolling like clockwork toys. I picked them off with my newly acquired GP-37, the scope making it almost too easy. Inside their outpost, I found medical supplies and ammunition, a promising start to my suicide mission. Further along the road, I encountered more resistance, including a sniper on a hill to the left. I peeked out from cover and introduced his face to my bullet before he could do the same to me. His sniper rifle was a nice bonus, along with the rare ammo it used, but it was a bit heavy, so I left it behind. The deeper I went, the weirder things got. Abandoned military vehicles rusted alongside the road, their metal frames twisted by anomalies. Monolith troops were everywhere, on towers, behind rocks, inside trenches. I moved from cover to cover, playing the world's most lethal game of whack-a-mole. At one point, I almost became a fine red mist courtesy of a Monolith soldier with an RPG. I spotted him just as he took aim and dived into a ditch as the rocket screamed overhead. Before he could reload, I killed him with extreme prejudice. The zone's method of population control is nothing if not efficient. Eventually, I reached the Brain Scorcher facility, greeted by ghostly apparitions of zone mutants drifting through the air like a haunting petting zoo. They blurred my vision but did little else. Spooky but ineffective. Snipers manned watchtowers behind a high fence, but they dropped easily. Brainwashing apparently doesn't boost perception. I found supplies in abandoned caravans, including Monolith suits and medkits. The real entrance was hidden in a train car, guarded by 3 Monolith soldiers who folded to my fire. My PDA lit up. Deactivate the machine. I descended into Lab X-19. Compared to the chaos above, the lab was eerily quiet. Linear halls replaced X-18's maze, and the only real threat was a few bloodsuckers. Finally, I entered a large control room and approached the console. Just one switch, the Brain Scorcher, this terrifying enigma of the zone, might finally give me answers, or maybe just more questions wrapped in radiation. I flipped it. Everything went white. This time, the vision didn't flicker. It consumed me. I wasn't just remembering, I was drowning in my own forgotten past. I saw myself, Strelok, collapsed on the concrete floor deep within the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant. Towering before me was the Wish Granter, a crystalline monolith pulsing with impossible light, reality blending around it. My hand reached for it, trembling. What did I come here seeking? The vision fractured, rats swarming outside the plant, their eyes glowing with shared intelligence. The death truck, the stench, the piled corpses. Then back again to the Wish Granter, reflecting us. Only wrong, twisted. A voice echoed directly in my mind. What you want is here, Stalker. Come to me. Was it the Wish Granter speaking? Or something else? The voice was alien, yet familiar. As if it had always been there, whispering just out of reach. This wasn't a hallucination, it was a memory. Erased and now returned. Someone had gone to great lengths to make me forget, but why? What truth had I uncovered in the zone's heart? And who had the power to reprogram a man to kill himself? Whatever lay ahead in Pripyat, it was bigger than factions or artifacts. The real answer, the real purpose, was still out there, waiting for me in the shadow of the reactor. I snapped back to reality. Gasping, the Brain Scorcher was off, and my PDA showed 20 Monolith signatures closing in. They knew, and they were coming. Getting out of the facility was like trying to leave a nightclub at 2 AM during a free booze announcement, if everyone was armed and homicidal. Monolith troops swarmed every hallway, some in exoskeletons that turned them into bullet-sponging tanks. Their weapons ranged from AKMs to the laser-accurate GP-37. I used every trick the zone had taught me. Grenades, silence kills, short bursts. It was a war of attrition, me against an army, trying not to become just another smear on the wall. Finally, I managed to emerge back into the Red Forest, where Monolith and military forces were already tearing each other apart. I slipped past the chaos like a ghost. The Brain Scorcher was down. The path to Pripyat was open. Stalkers were already pushing north, chasing the Wish Granter. A final group was forming in Pripyat to storm the power plant. I returned to the 100 Rads bar, stocked up on medkits and GP-37 ammo, and prepared for what lay ahead. This wasn't just another mission. This was the endgame. Something pulled me forward. I was Strelok. I had reached the center before, and something had happened there. Something so significant that someone had tried to erase both my memory and my existence. This time, I wouldn't be stopped. This time, I would find the truth, and maybe, just maybe, I'd finally remember who the hell I actually am and why I decided that Strelok was a cool nickname. Seriously, who names themselves after a rifle bolt? Armed to the teeth with medkits and 5.56, I entered Pripyat, a ghost city frozen in time. Rusted Ferris wheels, hollow apartment blocks, and Soviet decay stretched in every direction. The place reeked of death and forgotten history. My PDA lit up, reached the power plant. Ahead, I spotted the squad of stalkers in exoskeletons wielding top-tier gear. Veterans, survivors. I latched onto them like a tick on a blood donor. If anyone was making it to the NPP alive, it was these guys. We hadn't gone 10 steps before a shout. Enemies on the roof! Monolith troops spilled from windows and alleyways, turning the city into a war zone. I picked off snipers while my new best friend soaked up most of the lead. Pro tip, always stick near the mostly bulletproof people. We pushed through block by block, clearing Monolith ambushes and dodging Gauss rifle shots that could vaporize your skull in one hit. Eventually, we fought our way into an underground parking garage, tight, echoing, and filled with fanatics. One chaotic firefight later, the mission updated. Head to the MPP. Emerging topside, leaving behind my group of bulletproof friends. I had to play sniper whack-a-mole. One on the northern rooftop, another to the right, and a third northeast, all packing Gauss rifles. I moved carefully, using every scrap of cover I could find. The power plant loomed ahead, grim and monolithic. With each cleared block, I got closer. The monolith wouldn't stop coming, but neither would I. I reached the outskirts of the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, crossing a cracked bridge over a dead canal. The massive sarcophagus looming ahead. My PDA buzzed with an emission warning. I had 10 minutes before the zone tried to liquefy my brain. Perfect timing for military choppers and snipers to show up. 2 snipers spotted me immediately. One near a wrecked APC, another perched to the right. Radio chatter crackled. The helicopters had seen me. I knew from past attempts that this western route was suicide, so I went east, dodging whirligig anomalies and radiation pockets. Less glamorous than gunfights, but way better for staying alive. I passed a corpse clutching an RPG. Tempting, but no time for revenge fantasies. I sprinted past train cars, hugging buildings and dodging fire. Further in, another sniper awaited, plus more troops. I weaved through the chaos, using cover and speed like my life depended on it. Because it did. Just as the emission countdown hit red, I slipped through a breach in the wall and into the sarcophagus. I barely made it. Inside the sarcophagus, I stepped into a concrete labyrinth. Twisting corridors, dead ends, and hidden monolith snipers waiting in the dark. I took them out one by one, using doorways as choke points and looting what I could. These weren't ordinary fanatics, they were the final guard, the chosen few, armed with Gauss rifles and FT-200Ms. Tempting, but I stuck with my GP-37, it had gotten me this far. Climbing to the top floor, I cleared out the last wave of defenders and reached a room filled with rubble and flickering lights. At its center, half buried in between broken stone and shimmering anomaly fields, stood it. The Wish Granter. A crystalline spire rising from the wreckage like a fossilized dream. Its jagged surface pulsing with an inner light that shifted colors like oil on water. The air around it was thick, buzzing with static, vibrating with something ancient and wrong. The very fabric of reality seemed to bend around it, like gravity forgot which way was down. It didn't feel like approaching just any object, it felt like approaching a god. And it wanted something. I reached out, hand trembling, just as I had in my vision. The light brightened, the humming deepened, the illusion tightened its grip. "What is your wish, Stalker?" asked a voice, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I want to be rich," I said. Bolts and coins rained from above like treasure. I laughed, reaching to catch them, until I noticed the ceiling cracking. What I'd seen as gold was just debris. Screws, rust, and collapse. The roof gave way, and I was buried beneath the zone's final joke. Game over. But something about it felt wrong. Too neat, too ironic. The PDA from Ghost, my visions, the warnings from Guide and Doc. They all hinted at another truth buried deeper. One the Wish Granter was meant to hide. A ruse, a trap for the greedy, the desperate, the unworthy. The real answers weren't here. The real ending hadn't happened yet. This wasn't closure, it was camouflage. And I hadn't come this far just to die chasing a lie. The Wish Granter was a lie, a fabrication, a lure for stalkers drawn by the promise of fulfilled desires. But the truth lay deeper, hidden from those who couldn't see beyond the illusion. Had I followed the guidance of those who tried to help me, Guide and Doc, I would have learned about a secret stash in Pripyat containing a decoder for a hidden door in the sarcophagus. But despite missing that lead, fortune favored me. Through a peculiar quirk of physics within the zone, I discovered that tossing a Gauss rifle at the hinges of a suspiciously ordinary door would cause it to open. Perhaps not what the architects of this place intended, but the zone had always followed its own rules. Good to know that this glitch still works, by the way. Inside was something different. Clean, cold, untouched by time. My PDA pinged, nearly 30 Monolith signatures closing in. The path to the control room was anything but direct, blocked by gates, grates, guards, and sniper fire. I fought my way through sterile hallways and mirrored corridors, picking off Gauss snipers and clearing rooms stacked with supplies. These weren't regular stalkers, they were fanatics, elite defenders of something they barely understood. Grenades and short bursts carried me to the heart of the complex. The control room looked nothing like the rest of the sarcophagus. It wasn't rotting concrete or rusted steel, it was something constructed, intact. The floor was relatively smooth, the walls pulsed faintly with energy, like veins running with blue current, and in the center hovered a projection of the monolith, glowing, geometric, alien. Around it, seemingly projecting this image, were a half-dozen blue-white energy orbs, each one humming with power. I didn't hesitate. The moment I crossed the threshold, 3 pyrogeists erupted from the room, flaming specters screaming like broken alarms. They hurled fire traps across the chamber, setting the floor alight. The air shimmered with heat. I panicked, I flailed, I emptied magazines into anything that looked dangerous. Ghosts, orbs, the walls, maybe even my own shadow. I ran around like a chicken without a head, reloaded behind a pillar, and popped up firing like a lunatic. The energy spheres took round after round, each one pulsing harder as it weakened. The pyrogeist danced between them, flickering in and out of view, shrieking every time I got too close. One orb burst like a dying star, then another, and another. As the last orb shattered, the false monolith flickered and collapsed in on itself. In its place, a new hologram appeared, faint, unstable, the figure of a man in scientific attire whose face kept shifting, like 7 identities layered atop one another. It didn't speak aloud, it spoke into my mind, calm, measured, almost gentle, and it used my real name. This was C consciousness, a collective intelligence formed when 7 scientists linked their minds into a neural network. After the Chernobyl disaster, they had turned the Exclusion Zone into a secret laboratory. Their goal wasn't power, it was transformation. They discovered the noosphere, a global field of shared consciousness surrounding all living minds. They believed that they could influence it, heal humanity's worst impulses by reprogramming the very fabric of thought. But in 2006, their experiment backfired. They didn't reshape the world, they fractured it. The zone was born from that psychic rupture, a wound where the laws of nature broke down. What I'd seen, anomalies, mutants, impossible terrain, wasn't chaos. It was thought made physical, the mind intruding on matter. To contain the fallout, they created layers of defense. The brain scorcher to keep intruders away. The wish granter to lure the desperate and reprogram them into monolith fanatics. The whole zone had become a psychic immune system, purging threats and rewriting minds. And then there was me, Strelok. I'd gotten too close once. My group, Fang, Ghost and I, had nearly reached this chamber. So they captured me, wiped my memories, and implanted a single directive. Kill Strelok. A perfect loop. I was turned into my own executioner. But something failed. A crash. A misfire in their neural overwrite. Sidorovich found me, and I started the journey again, unknowingly retracing my own footsteps. Now I stood before them, and they saw potential. Unlike others, I had resisted their influence. They offered me a place among them, to merge with their consciousness, to help contain the zone, and maybe one day heal it. To become the 8th member of the current 7 members of the C consciousness. To them, it was salvation. To me, it was surrender. These were the architects of the zone, the ones who had erased my past, bent others to their will, and played God with reality. Accepting their offer meant becoming the very thing I'd fought to uncover. And so I made my final choice. I refused. I refused the offer. No debate, no hesitation. Just a harsh no to everything the C consciousness stood for. Reality fractured. In an instant, I was ripped from the chamber and dropped onto a high platform outside the sarcophagus. The sky churned purple and red. Portals shimmered in the air like open wounds. My PDA buzzed, find the exit. 15 portals, 15 nightmares. Monolith soldiers began teleporting in, silent zealots ready to die for their masters. The first portal glowed ahead. I dropped 3 enemies in my path and stepped through. Each portal led to a new rooftop maze of snipers' radiation and death-defying jumps. I dodged a rocket that killed its own wielder, crept past ghost rifles, and scavenged a Vintar BC sniper from a ruined crate. In another section, I balanced along thin pipes and steel beams like a tightrope walker with a death wish, barely surviving each encounter. I found a rooftop cache, medkits, ammo, and a pristine armored suit. Someone had planned for a last stand. One portal even glitched me back into Zadorovich's bunker, just long enough to see his shocked face before I vanished again. Then came the final gauntlet. Walkways stacked above the power plant's core, crawling with Monolith troops and snipers. I found an untouched exoskeleton, geared up and pushed forward. Bullets screamed past. Another RPG, another leap. One last portal waited, one last climb, and the zone held its breath. As I approached, the sea consciousness played its final card. Soldiers teleported all around me, creating a gauntlet of gunfire. Rather than fighting through them, I sprinted for the teleporter, weaving and ducking as bullets whizzed past. I dived into the portal, pushing me deeper into its embrace. The world stopped spinning. The cacophony of battle faded. I found myself in a sterile room that seemed to exist outside of time and space. Stasis tubes sat at the center of the chamber, each containing the floating body of a scientist. The physical vessels of the sea consciousness. Monitors beeped steadily, maintaining their unnatural existence. So this was the truth behind it all. Not aliens, not supernatural forces, just men who had reached too far, who had broken reality in their arrogance. Their bodies were frail, preserved only by the machinery around them, but their collective mind had turned the zone into their playground, manipulating stalkers like puppets. I thought of all the people who had died because of their experiment. The zombified stalkers wandering the zone with no mind left. The Monolith cultists brainwashed into fanatic devotion. Ghost, Fang, and countless others who had only wanted to understand the truth. My AKS-74U, the same weapon I'd had since basically the start of my journey, felt heavy in my hands. It had seen me through the entire journey, from Rookie Village to the heart of Chernobyl. It seemed fitting that it would end here. I raised the rifle and opened fire. The stasis tubes shattered one by one, their occupants slumping lifelessly as the machinery around them failed. Alarms blared, emergency systems activated, but it was too late. As I fired on the last tube, the room began to warp around me. The walls faded, the floor disappeared beneath my feet, and I felt myself falling through darkness. The sea consciousness's final death throes twisted reality itself, threatening to take me with it into oblivion. I closed my eyes and surrendered to the void. I awoke in a sunlit field. Tall grass swayed gently in the breeze around me, each blade distinct and vibrant with color. The sky stretched above, impossibly blue and clear. No trace of the unnatural hues that had dominated the zone. Birds sang in nearby trees, their melodies untainted by radiation or fear. My Geiger counter lay silent at my side, its needle still. Looking down at my arm, I noticed the stalker tattoo was gone, vanished like a nightmare at dawn. The skin was unmarked, as if those letters had never been carved into my flesh, as if I had never been branded, never been turned into a weapon against myself. Had the zone disappeared? Had I destroyed it by killing the sea consciousness? Or was this merely another illusion, another trap laid by an entity that had already proven it could manipulate reality itself? These questions would never find answers. I would never know if I had made the right choice. The sea consciousness had been trying to contain the zone, not expand it. By destroying them, had I doomed the world to a spreading cancer of anomalies and mutants? Or had I freed it from the meddling of scientists who played God with forces they couldn't comprehend? Every stalker who had died in the zone had done so for something. Artifacts, wealth, knowledge, belonging. Ghost died searching for truth. Fang died protecting his friends. What had I died for in that death trap? What had I killed for as I hunted myself across the irradiated wastes? These questions would haunt me, but perhaps not forever. I ran my fingers through the grass, feeling each blade bend and spring back. Real, solid, present. When was the last time I had touched something without calculating its value, its danger, its utility for survival? As I lay back, watching clouds drift overhead in formations unmarred by psychic emissions, I realized it didn't matter. The zone had taken everything from me. My memory, my friends, years of my life. But in the end, I had taken the zone. I closed my eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face. For the first time since awakening in Sidorovich's bunker, I felt peace. No PDA chirping with coordinates to my next objective. No ammunition count to monitor. No radiation slowly burning through my cells. Just stillness, and the steady rhythm of my breathing. Whatever came next, I would face it, not as the marked one, not as Strelok, but simply as myself. A man with no tattoo on his arm, no price on his head, no mission beyond the next sunrise. My journey through the zone was over, and for once that thought didn't fill me with dread, but with a strange, unfamiliar sensation that swelled in my chest, making it hard to breathe for a moment. Hope. Not the desperate hope of finding the next stash, the next safe house, the next moment of temporary respite, but something deeper and quieter. The hope of a life beyond survival, the hope of memories that don't bite and bleed, the hope of a world where the sky stays blue and I stay myself. I stood up slowly, feeling the absence of weight. No weapons, no artifacts, no burden. Just a man in a field, facing an open horizon. I began to walk. In the stark, irradiated twilight of Strelok's journey, Stalker, Shadow of Chernobyl, transcends its digital boundaries to become something more primal. A mirror reflecting the fractured soul of humanity itself. The zone isn't merely a playground of horrors, but a testament to our most fundamental contradiction. Our capacity for both revelation and ruin. Our hunger for knowledge, coupled with our inability to bear its weight. What haunts us most about the zone is not its mutated beasts or reality-warping anomalies, but its uncomfortable familiarity. In its radioactive heart, we recognize the consequences of our own history. Scientific ambition untethered from ethical constraint. Power divorced from responsibility. Progress pursued at any cost. The twisted landscapes of Chernobyl become not just a cautionary tale of what was, but a ghostly premonition of what might yet be. The factions that carve up this contaminated Eden reveal the fractured facets of our own response to catastrophe. Duty's authoritarian rigidity represents our desperate need for order in chaos. Freedom's anarchic embrace shows our yearning to transcend boundaries, even destructive ones. The scientist's cold calculation reflects our belief that understanding alone will save us, while the Monolith cultists embody our tendency to find religious meaning in disaster, to worship what we cannot comprehend. Each philosophy is simultaneously valid and fundamentally incomplete, just as our own attempts to make sense of existence often are. In the true ending's most wrenching moment, Strelok faces a choice that defies easy categorization. Join the sea consciousness, become part of a collective mind that sought to save humanity from itself, or destroy it, preserving individual freedom at the cost of humanity's potential salvation. This isn't merely a binary choice between good and evil, but a confrontation with the fundamental question of what it means to be human. Is our salvation to be found in unity or autonomy? In submission to greater purpose, or in the messy exercise of free will? The image of Strelok afterward, lying in a field of grass, uncertain whether he's made the right choice, yet finding peace in that very uncertainty, offers perhaps the only honest answer possible. The zone persists, within and around us, not as a problem to be solved, but as a reality to be acknowledged, and navigated with humility. Our greatest strength may lie not in our certainty, but in our willingness to question, to wander through the anomalies of our existence without surrendering to even nihilistic despair or comforting delusion. As we close this chapter on Strelok's Odyssey, we're left not with answers, but with reflection, shimmering like artifacts among the ruins of what we thought we knew. The zone calls to something primal within us, something that recognizes both the terror and the wonder of existence on the edge of comprehension. And like stalkers drawn inexorably back to its irradiated embrace, we return to these questions, knowing they may destroy us, yet unable to resist their gravitational pull. In the end, perhaps that's what makes us human, after all. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I really actually did not expect to like this game as much as I did. I know I said that a lot, but considering how old it was, I don't normally get too well off on older games. But no, this game was actually brilliant. You should go and play it if you want. It's really fucking cheap. I mean, you can find it for like £2 or something. And I mean, it's dated. If you thought the game looked a bit strange, it's because I was using a mod pack. Apparently people don't like the mod pack because complete, Stalker complete, but I don't give a fuck. Anyway, I'd like to take a massive thank you to the Patreons and the members, that being the Milkman, Reeslern, Aroxano, Vinicus Franca, A Brick Wall, Ice Bear, and Ash Crowing. Honestly, the support from all of you means the world to me. And if you do want to get exclusive access to talking to me, unique Discord role, and sneak peeks to future videos, then join the channel as a member or join the Patreon, either or, and you'll get the role and everything. But you don't have to, obviously. It is just a suggestion. If you did enjoy, please make sure to like and subscribe. Obviously, you don't have to, but it does help a lot. Check my socials out, and yeah. Also, I just want to add something here. Probably most people won't see it, but I know my interpretation of Strelok at the end contradicts with how he's presented in the later games, but I haven't played them, so I don't really know. But I think that my interpretation and how I framed it was how it just came across to me. So hopefully you enjoyed either way. I don't care if you didn't, to be honest. But if you did care, if you did hate it, let me know down below so I can get the engagement from it. Thanks. Anyway, yes, nothing more to say. Join the Discord, join the Discord, join the Discord, join the Discord. And once again, thank you to the channel members and the Patreons, and I will see you all in the next video. Boy, boy.